you wrote a beautiful piece titled You Deserve to Thrive: Why Prioritizing Your Mental Health Empowers You, Your Family, and Your Community. Now, going through that article, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, you write that when a mother thrives, her family thrives. What does that actually look like in a home, and how do you help clients get there?
Well, it looks like someone that is living their life without or with minimal resentment, having the tools and the confidence to communicate, recognizing that they have worth and value internally. So that means, I don't want to like create stereotypes, but maybe the mother is working because she wants to work. We have a higher age bracket of women having babies now. I think for the first time in, I don't know about history, but in decades at least, there's more women in their 30s and 40s having babies than teenagers, which is a huge accomplishment. And so for a lot of us, we've had careers before having children. So it's very different than decades ago. And
Right.
so I think when a mother is thriving, she has her own identity. Mother is part of it. It's a big part and a part, I'm very grateful for, but it's not the whole part. And recognizing that in a family, I think is important. Um, and so that can mean having some control. You're never going to have all, but some control over time. What does that look like? Having support to pursue interests. We want our kids to know that we're people too, right? So that they're like, oh, when someone says, oh, what? Tell me about your mom. They're not just saying, well, she makes my food. My mom loves to swim, or my mom, works as whatever, right? Um, and so also demonstrating what self care really is and finding times of connection and caring for yourself with supports, like not in isolation. Um, so I think it's important to encourage, well, all people. I'm going to say all people, not just parents, but encourage parents to recognize, what do you think your kids see? Like, hold up that mirror. What do they see in you? And does that like accurately represent your values and who you think you are or want to be? Because that can be a really great way of recognizing what your needs are.
Yeah, that might prompt somebody to say, like, wow, used to play the guitar all the time. Like, I'm not downstairs in my studio, strumming away or writing songs. Could be reading books, or I haven't just lounged in my backyard and smelling the fresh cut grass in a while. I used to do that all the time. That's a really good way of being able to put that, because it just reframes the mind to look through a bit of a different lens for somebody to actually kind of pick that up and say, oh no, yeah, I've been missing something I've been really enjoying for a while. I'm not doing that yet. And once you start doing it and getting back to really kind of feeling like you, then correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of where the identity starts to come back.
Yeah, for sure. And then you're feeling more grounded and bringing in the nervous system. Then your nervous system is calmer, right? Because it's
Right.
feeling more in line. Um, it's not always like feeling on edge of like, what's coming next? Who am I? Like, how do I fit in this situation? It's like, no, I feel really connected to who I am and the people around you too, right? Like, you're gonna have much healthier, stronger relationships with your partner and your family and your friends, etc., if you feel more connected to who you are. There's much less loneliness.
Totally. Totally. Well, I love this next one because I'm a bit of a movie fan. Love Pixar movies and Disney movies. So you referenced the Pixar movie Inside Out. For those who haven't watched it, please go ahead and watch it. How do you use that emotional framework to help clients make peace with all parts of themselves?
I think Disney did such a great job in this movie, because we all have parts. And whether or not you've studied internal family systems, or one of the other like therapeutic modalities that uses parts work, um, I think everybody can recognize like there's a part of me that feels this way. Like, it's not all of me. And so with clients, I think hearing, it sounds like a part of you feels this way, but not all of you, is really affirming, because we carry guilt and shame for our emotions, but our emotions have a place. They're welcome. They're trying to tell us something, right? And so we don't want to ignore them. But when you recognize that they're not your whole story, they're a part of your story, it takes that burden off of feeling ashamed for how you feel. So, for example, this has come up a few times this week with clients, where they share that they feel like they're not loving everything about motherhood, right? And then they're feeling guilty. Like, I don't hate being a mom, but I don't love everything. And like, how do I wrap my head around that? So then we talk about, well, there's a part of you that is feeling disconnected in motherhood, or there's a part of you that doesn't love being on mat leave and being away from your friends and colleagues, or there's a part of you that um, is exhausted and isn't sure how much longer you can not be sleeping. And that's okay. Like, those parts are welcome. But I'm also hearing there's a part of you that loves being a mom. And there's a part of you that is really excited to see your baby grow, or like to see what they're going to do tomorrow. There's a part of you that's really um, feeling connected to this nurturing part of you that's showing up. So um, I think breaking it apart can be really powerful, and not just in motherhood, like for anybody, right? Like, you have an event coming up and you're like, ugh, I don't really want to go. And it's like, well, a part of me is really nervous about, meeting new people. Well, there's other parts of me that's also really excited about opportunities that could come out of it. So when we break it apart, it feels less heavy. And
Happens all the time. Every time I want to go to a networking event, I'm driving there going like, man, that new TV series I'm watching is looking real good right about now. Till I start networking, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm having a great time meeting all kinds of new people. And yeah, there's always a little something that might be in your back of your mind that might pull you in a different way. But then you finish, and I'm like, man, I love going to these. I always want to keep going to these, and
yeah,
it's exactly what you're saying, right?
yeah, you almost have that like image in your head of like joy and anxiety fighting over the board, the master board there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned in this article the authentic self, right? Disconnection that happens from the authentic self. That's what the theme is here. How can somebody tell if they've lost that connection, and what would be the first step towards finding that again?
Mm. Most often I hear people say, I just don't feel right. Like, I can't describe what it is. I just don't feel like myself. That might be like you try and do something that you used to enjoy and it's just not hitting the spot. Or even being around people that you used to be around and just feeling disconnected, like it's work to do things that used to be fun and easy.
Mhm.
I mean, there can be other things happening there. So just caution if you are noticing that. It helps to talk to someone to tease it apart. Um, but it might be something like maybe all your old friends, none of them have kids. And now you are, parents of a newborn. And, when you hear them complaining about, like, oh my God, I can't believe I had to get up at 10 a.m. on Saturday, there's a disconnect there. And it's not judgment saying like there's something wrong with your friends. They're entitled to feel that way. And also, like, there's bigger things going on in your life. So that's pretty common. So, what is your new authentic self? Well, part of that is being a parent, but what are the values that come with that? Um, and giving yourself permission to grieve the life that you had or let go of some things, um, that can be really empowering. So that disconnect can often show up as like maybe some signs of depression, um, like apathy, just lack of interest, avoidance, um, loneliness. Yeah. So it just like really not feeling good, not feeling like yourself.
You mentioned journaling, and curiosity is the first steps before therapy. How do those practices help someone begin healing when you're in that looking to be in that healing process?
Mm. Journaling is so powerful, and if you're not a person that enjoys pen to paper, that's okay. Some people type it, some people voice note. Um, Journaling allows us to process information. So there is some scientific evidence around like pen to paper writing helps our brain to process. And so it is a form of problem solving, like a unconscious problem solving sometimes, but it's also recognizing that we don't have to hold everything in our brain. Sometimes our worries are completely out of our control, or not very likely to happen, or maybe they're based on a past experience that doesn't apply in the present. So, journaling can take the information out of your head and put it on paper, and then like allowing yourself to not carry it anymore because it's been written down. Um, some people can do that without even writing it, which is great as well. There's methods we use to help with that. Um, and curiosity is such a powerful emotion. I think it's one of our most powerful emotions because when we show up with curiosity, it reduces the burden of judgment and allows us to feel free to let information come and go from our brains. It also can avoid conflict for ourselves and with others. So if you're curious, um, it allows people to explain and to open up for more information. So, for example, um, like if your partner is doing something that's really annoying you, and if you're curious and say, "Oh, I've noticed that recently you've been doing X more often," or like, "I noticed lately you're playing more video games." I don't know. And they're able to say, "Yeah, you seem really busy with the baby. I'm trying to stay out of your way." Like that's a lot different than, I can't stand that you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
Or other things that can come up, right? So like I'm just curious, like I've noticed this is happening. It can avoid conflict for sure. And it changes how we interact with the world. It just opens it up to possibility.
yeah. The more information that you know, the better you're able to make decisions. Life's all about making choices, making decisions. So if you're arming yourself with more knowledge, it's just going to help through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this transition to parenthood that we're talking about, you meet so many new people, right? And so having curiosity about those other people also allows you to kind of figure out, like, who am I in this phase? Like, more about your identity as well. Who am I drawn to? Um, what's coming up for me in these different events and interactions? Just without having to label it, just being curious and noticing what comes up.
I'm going to segue in here because we're still talking about healing. And so you talk about healing ripples into families and communities. Can you share like what that transformation looks like when someone begins prioritizing their mental health?
Um, I see quite often, when there is that healing that is happening, um, people tend to be more assertive. It doesn't take as much courage to speak up, and set the tone for relationships. It's interesting because I will often say, if they're not in the room with us, then we can't change them. However, what we also know is that when we set boundaries and are more assertive, and that healing has happened, we're having more rational, adaptive scripts in our brains. So instead of like, I am a burden, I am worthwhile and deserve to be listened to or heard. When you show up in relationships, there's more respect that shows up. Families either have clearer communication, or you just recognize who isn't your people, right? Like letting go, and grieving relationships that, um, aren't what you want them to be, which again happens a lot in that transition to parenthood of having parents healing from childhood trauma because they are more aware of how it's impacted them and they don't want to parent how their parents parented.
I
And
see.
so, yeah. And so, as that healing is happening, they're now setting boundaries with the people in their lives and having more. intentional relationships and aware of like how they're parenting. Um, and so then they're gonna connect with people, like they're gonna find their people because they're more aware of how detrimental it was in their own childhood, um, for the lack of capacity or the choices that their own parents made.
It's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool to watch, and it's like an honor to witness it.
All right, moving on to our third segment. Wrote another article, The Mask We Wear, Motherhood and the Art of Holding It Together, but Not Really. So my first question, as I read this great piece, very informative. You write about the invisible mask that parents wear and why some signs that someone is making their emotions, and how can they begin to drop that mask?
Um, well, I think safety is important, right? Um, validation for why it's there in the first place. So connecting the parents with other parents that can relate. Um, and so whether that's through a therapist or there's a lot of really great like mom groups, parenting groups, um, giving that safe space of like, hey, you know what? It's okay to say you didn't do the dishes yesterday because the people around you aren't going to judge you. And if they do, then they're not your people. Um,